Techlandia is recorded at the Central Office on the East Side in Portland. Central Office is a one-stop for all your office or meeting needs. Check them out at centraloffice.com.
Welcome to Techlandia, Tao's regular podcast series. I'm Skip Newberry, President and CEO of Tao. And with us, we're pleased to have as our guest, Michelle Haynes, who's with In Time Tech. Michelle, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Skip. It's a pleasure, and I can't wait for the conversation.
Awesome. Well, I always start off with the same question, which is, would love to hear more about your professional journey. How did you end up in your current role?
How did I end up in my current role? Well, it is a story. So I was at a local college here in the Nampa, Idaho area. I attended Northwest Nazarene University, and I was there getting my degree in business administration. And an intern opportunity came up at this company called In Time Tech. And I remember being in a math class with someone who applied for the internship, and she told me that it just wasn't for her, that it just wasn't something she was very interested in. And I happened to be the second person that was introduced to this company as a potential candidate for this internship. So I met with one of the co-founders. His name is Dan Puga. We met at a coffee shop where he interviewed me for this internship. And I think, Skip, I said no to every single question he asked me as far as what I knew about what they were doing, what In Time Tech was about, how they were leveraging technology. But I ended that interview by telling Dan, if it can be learned, I can learn it. And I'm very open and I'm very coachable. So I would love the opportunity to see what this is all about. And so I was hired as an intern, and my internship went from being a summer internship to turning into a part-time job opportunity. Then that transitioned into a full-time job opportunity. Then I had commitment issues, admittedly, so I didn't know what I was doing, and I had a panic attack for a moment about what I was doing as a business student at a technology company, considering that I joined as an intern when the company was barely 2 years old. I joined at a time where we weren't even crossing an annual revenue threshold of $100,000. To being a part of this company and evolving along with this company to the extent that we now have 8 offices globally, we're generating $40 million in revenue, and we are this local company with this global impact that has diversified services that are just serving companies across so many different verticals, across so many different industries. So it's been a journey, but that's really how it started, from internship to commitment issues to really having this conversation with the CEO. And his point, I'll share briefly on that, what made such an impact for me at that time in my life is when I lacked the confidence to see how I could contribute to a technology company, not being a technologist. There was my CEO and leader who was saying it takes a village, and it takes people who communicate differently and express themselves differently and who think differently to make the whole function well. So why don't you dig in, take a stand, and really live into what's possible and what you can grow into as a part of this team and see how far we can go together. So it was less about what's your resume, what's your experience, what do you know? It was how much can you learn and how far do you want to go, and let's go together. So from that point forward, I was all in. I didn't look back. And since then, I've worn just about every hat you can imagine in the company. So I really started in marketing, in generating traffic to some of our products that we sold and supported, to doing project management, to doing program management, because there's a real disconnect at times between engineers and non-technical customers who need technology to run their business. And I found I was a very natural fit for that. And as it scaled, project management turned into program management. There was some UI, UX, human factor engineering in there somewhere. And then from that point, we really made a commitment as a company to hire US-based engineers. And so I really had the opportunity to learn how to hire, train, and retain engineering staff and engineering talent. And then from there, I just naturally evolved into being very partner facing and working with our clients because I just had an understanding of how everything worked. And at one point, I was also a billable project manager. So I understood what it was like to be a part of a team and have deliverables that were being weighed and measured and really being on the forefront of how do we produce these results. So where I stand today, my title, if you will, is the Executive Vice President of Services and AI. And my responsibility really is to ensure that all of the partners and clients that we're serving in private sector really are delighted with what we're doing and the results that we're producing in collaboration, and that our team is coming along and they're inspired and they're challenged and they're innovating, and we're showing up to just meet the need. So that's really the story of how I've grown and where I am today because of In Time Tech alongside In Time Tech.
That's great. It's rare that you encounter someone these days who kind of started out at a company and then completely built their career at that company. And it seems like there's fewer and fewer stories like that these days. So it's refreshing to know it's still
It
possible.
is fun.
I wanted to ask you a question about the sort of the makeup of the customers that you work with. Are they how would you describe the types of companies and sizes and stages of company that you work with?
Great question. So we are very diverse in who we serve. And what I attribute that to is that when our 5 co-founders started In Time Tech, they really didn't have an attachment to a specific technology. They didn't open the doors of In Time Tech saying, we just love data and what we know is data, or we just do DevOps. It's what we know, it's what we do, and it's what we're going to continue to do. Really, the genesis of In Time Tech came from our president and CEO, G. Kumar, and his whole premise and his whole perspective on life is to just create abundance and to make a difference for people. So that was truly the genesis, 5 layers down, of what In Time Tech is all about. And Jeet really took the path of education and having a very successful career at HP and just became a brilliant technologist in his own regard. So when it came time for him to start his own business, which was a lifelong dream he'd had that dream since he was a teenager, to have a profitable business so that he could really make a difference in people's lives. He really looked at, how do I produce results that people are going to be willing to pay for so I can make a difference? And the truth of it was, he was a technologist. So technology became the vehicle to make a difference. It became the framework in which we could produce results to really show up and provide a level of partnership that left people touched, moved, and inspired about how partnership could look. And that in turn creates jobs, and that in turn impacts families and communities and so on and so forth. So when we started the company, it was about, how do we make a difference as a long-term vested technology partner? But what that meant, Skip, is that we showed up in partnership to solve the problem that these companies had. That came first. The capability, while it was there, developed gradually over time and just continually compounded because of the partnerships that we had. So we started with full stack engineering. We started delivering more on the tech side of things. We do a lot of partnership and we provide a lot of services for the high tech industry. And that really just evolved organically into, all right, let's do some mobile development, and we're doing QA, and now we're doing data, and now we're doing cybersecurity, because our clients would come to us and say, we've had such success working with you, and this is a need that we have. Can you guys meet this need? And we would show up very transparently in that conversation and share, here's the exact capability and skill that we have currently. And we're happy to invest in that capability on our dime if you're committed to this long-term relationship. So you take that mentality year over year over year for 17 years, and we now have 1,200 employees globally, and we can offer end-to-end services. And we have a lot of depth and a lot of breadth because the partnership came first and the capabilities evolved with those partnerships. So present tense, when you look at who we're currently serving, We are currently serving companies that are generating $400 billion in annual revenue, just as much as we're serving companies at the size and scale of local startups who are, again, maybe making $100,000 a year. And then when it comes to verticals and industries, yes, domain knowledge is very specific, obviously, but technology is quite universal. So long as our clients and partners are willing and open to have us learn the domain, the technology is fairly consistent. And we will take it upon ourselves to learn some of those domain specific terms, terminology, language, so that we can really have an impact as that long term partner. So that's a bit about our size and scale and who we serve and what that looks like and why it is that way.
That's great. And if we shift a little bit to sort of what you're seeing right now with artificial intelligence, kind of infused in all sorts of conversations, and people are looking to how can they employ it in a variety of different business contexts. Are there certain trends that you're seeing across the different customers that you work with? Like, if you were to say, okay, here's where we are in the hype cycle. Here's what we're seeing in terms of real deployments. What do those look like?
Yeah. There are definitely patterns and things that we're getting present to and that we're seeing again across industries and across various sizes of organizations. One thing is there is a general sense of fear and skepticism, which is understandable when the vision isn't made clear. So I have the opportunity of talking with a lot of CTOs and a lot of CIOs, COOs, CFOs who can say, and rightly so, AI is here to stay and we need to adopt it. And we understand that it can be very powerful, but we don't really know exactly what that looks like. And I have teams that are afraid. They are afraid for their jobs. They are afraid that their skill sets are going to become irrelevant. And so there are a lot of conversations we have around that fear. And what I have seen to be the most effective way to combat that fear is to just have genuine enrollment amongst your team, amongst your leadership, where you're mapping out that plan. So it's one thing to say we're going to embrace AI and we need to be more effective as a business. It's another thing to say, okay, I'm trying to build these systems and kind of build up this infrastructure because I want to reduce and cut costs. Really, I'm thinking of a conversation I had just last week where I was talking with a CIO who's based on the East Coast, and they shared, I don't want to reduce headcount. I'm not having this conversation and exploring what AI could do in this respective place in my business because I want to minimize or shrink or reduce. The reality is I'm on a growth trajectory of 60% next year. And I want my team that I have to be able to handle that growth without needing to hire these additional people because my existing team, they're culturally aligned. They have the domain knowledge, they have the context, and I want to see them expand and scale into, a bigger role in the company. However, they can't simply because they're inundated with very manual tasks. They're spending hours every day updating sheets, uh, inputting data, doing data validation, and it's taking away their opportunity to really grow and scale and take on this additional growth. So, in general, just a sense of fear of is it going to replace me? And what does that look like? And that has been combated really successfully with just open, transparent conversations with leadership and having a strong vision on what they're going to do, what companies are going to do with the savings or with the added productivity or efficiency. And then there's another narrative that we're hearing a lot about, which is speed. You have a lot of leaders right now who need to make decisions, and there's this underlying fear that they're already behind. Like, hey, it's moving quickly. This is moving really fast. I'm already at a loss when it comes to competitive advantage because I see these other companies already utilizing and leveraging these things. But here's again what we're seeing in real time. It's less of an opinion and it's more of what we're hearing from all these different companies that we have the opportunity to talk to is that we still have companies that are reaching out to us who are on platforms and who are using technology that's 30 years old. It takes a lot to change the way an organization is structured and the tools and systems and applications they're using. And any time can be the right time. You're not behind. You're not too late to the party, and you don't have to rush into something without clarity. And the reality is, if you do, you're likely just setting yourself back anyway. So, fear is something we're seeing a lot of. Concern over speed is something that we're seeing a lot of. And another conversation around AI that we're hearing a lot and engaging a lot with is, what is the ROI? If you do a quick study and do some quick research, you'll see that as more and more companies are adopting AI, it's not necessarily translating to their bottom line. So AI has a lot of promise and there's a lot of possibility there. But just like any framework and any tool, it needs to be applied in a way that's going to create impact. So there was recently an Atlassian survey. There was 180 surveys that were done with Fortune 1000 leaders who failed to report that AI had any significant impact on the bottom line. So what we're seeing is people saying, I know what it is. I'm on board. I'm aligned. And yet, how do I deploy it? Right? How do I use it and leverage it in a way where it's really going to have an impact? How is it going to translate? And that just comes from get clear. What are your KPIs? What are you trying to accomplish? What system are you trying to modernize? What kind of workflow are you trying to enhance? Who's going to use it? Which are very traditional questions that you would ask or any kind of project success around software development. So those are a few things, Skip, that we're seeing and hearing and having a lot of conversations around with our existing clients.
That's really great. I mean, I think there was that recent story about Uber blowing through their year's worth of AI budget in the first quarter and a half of the year. I think it was by April, they were completely at the limit.
Yes.
And to your point, it's like, yeah, we just did AI. We just had unlimited token usage across the board. And lo and behold, we blew our
Right.
budget. Who would have thought?
Yes.
And then there's other examples where, the amount of money devoted to AI solutions is exceeding what it would cost just to throw a lot of humans at the same problem. And so to your point, it's like, people are struggling, I think, in conversations I've had with them to find the right historical context or metaphor. And someone recently said to me at an event, they were like, is this kind of like the printing press and the cotton gin and the internet all in one times 10? Or is this more like the beginning of the transition to cloud computing, where you had kind of like runaway spend and people were trying to figure out what's the difference between on-prem and what are the advantages I get? Like, how would you characterize where we are now in this continuum?
For me and the conversations that I get to be a part of, how I would personally describe it is with it depends. I've seen it
Yeah.
firsthand. We are working with some giants right now who are so clear. They're so clear on the KPIs. They're so clear on how they're going to implement and leverage AI, and they're doing it and they're having success. So we have some people who come to us and who say, we're all in. There's no convincing needed. We don't have to do a proof of concept to prove out the value of this thing. We know that there's value in it. We want to be AI native, burn it to the ground. Let's rebuild. We also have
Yep.
people who say, listen, I'm just in a room full of skeptics and no one believes that this is real. They believe it's a bubble, that it's going to come and go. I can't get this project approved or this budget approved because it's not tried and true. AI isn't battle tested in our organization. So I have a hard time putting together a scope of work to defend and justify the business spend. And in those cases, we do proof of concept to show here's what's possible. Here's a piece of the pie. You don't have to
Mhm.
take it all on at one time, but here's a glimmer of what it can do and what it can create. And I say it depends because there are so many variables in what success with AI looks like, including the company's mentality around it, who's going to be implementing it,
Yep.
the clarity of the project, the workflow you're going to be enhancing or perhaps replacing, the budget, the spend, the timeline, the urgency, the just overall excitement and openness of the team who's going to be using it. And you shared a great use case around Uber. We're seeing that in smaller local companies who have really said, we're in, right? We're doing this. And as
Mhm.
they have invested in it, they've not been clear about how they're going to measure the success or how it's going to translate. And then it's lost. It's it's not going to produce results. So yes, AI is fantastic if it's going to save you 4 hours of your time, because you don't need to spend 4 hours gathering data for a weekly dashboard that you need to submit to your C-level suite. But the question is, what are you going to do with those 4 hours that you now have at your disposal to generate more business or to innovate or to do revenue generating activities with your team? And those are the conversations that need to happen. So AI can take us as far as we want it to take us on a personal level, on a professional level, at an organizational level, but there needs to be some groundwork that is done around what is the function of AI for us and for our team and for our company, and what do we define as success in that regard.
Yep. Yeah, there's some companies we've talked to who are essentially looking at ways that they can redesign workflows from the ground
Mm.
up around AI as a new tool in that process. And it almost reminds me of like when you do a new website, it often creates this more comprehensive conversation across an organization about how are we talking about ourselves and what we do and the value we
Mhm.
offer. And it becomes a much bigger exercise. It's far more strategic than just launching a new website. And I feel like with AI, what we're hearing from some companies that have taken the time to say, here's how it empowers workers and giving folks who are on the front lines at those companies opportunities to define how they want to use
Mm.
AI to make the drudgery of their job go away so they can focus on more of the higher value things. There are a couple companies that in particular we've talked to who have created a culture of experimentation and innovation because of this how are we going to deal with AI
Yes.
question. And I'm wondering, do you see across your work this increasing emphasis around almost organizational redesign and the importance of culture? You mentioned the importance of vision clearly defined to kind of mitigate fear and anxiety. Is this kind of like the first thing that you recommend to companies as they're thinking about dipping their toe in the AI waters?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Skip. I propose often as we have these conversations, because we scope a lot of projects and we do a lot of discovery, and something that's really unique for us as a long-term vested technology and AI partner is we're not there to prescribe one thing. We're not prescribing a solution, a product, a framework, one way of approaching a problem. We are incredibly agile and flexible because, again, it's probably one of my favorite phrases. It depends. Going in and delivering
Okay.
value depends on what is already there and what already exists. And to come in and say, burn it down, none of it's good, that's not going to get you very far and it's not very realistic. None of us live our life that way. We always need to look at what we have at our disposal and do the best with what we have and take into consideration all of the natural limitations and constraints that are a part of life and a part of business. So there's going to be a budget and there's going to be a timeline and there's going to be a certain amount of resources available and there's going to be goals and there's going to be objectives and there's going to be teams with personalities and communication styles and all of these things that make up the whole. So when you introduce AI, it's really showing up and understanding what do you want to accomplish with what you already have and how far do you want to go and what's the end result. And as a part of that process, so many things get redesigned. So Skip, I sometimes share with our clients, listen, a lot of people are coming to us and asking about AI. And when we end up engaging and working on projects with them and alongside them, most of the time, Skip, it's not even AI, because
Yep.
AI has lended a new lens to business owners, to business leaders, to C-level executives, it's given them a new set of glasses to put on to evaluate something that probably existed a year ago, 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe. Those bottlenecks, those constraints, the desirable business outcomes are likely the same. But AI has given cause and given a platform for these leaders to reevaluate what they have and what needs to be changed, updated, modernized, or thought through again with a bigger future in mind. So, definitely, a lot of redesign takes place. A lot of times, people need to reimagine and rework what is the ideal workflow because I don't want to recreate what I already have. I want to take 4 more steps out of this.
Mhm.
And when that happens, what we see is those aren't AI projects, those are data projects, and those are automation projects, which is a really great place to start when you want to launch into AI eventually.
That's great advice. As you look ahead with this landscape, this sort of period of rapid and dynamic change going on across the business landscape, like what are you most excited about for in time tech?
Mm. I'm really excited that over the course of the last 2 years, we have so fully embraced AI and it's been so organic. It wasn't something that it seems like we chose for ourselves. Our clients and our partners really chose it for us and we came along. And now we're in it together. And so when you look at our portfolio of work, a majority of what we're doing, how we're generating revenue, how we're delivering value, it is very AI centric, which is very exciting for our engineers. It's very exciting for the companies that we're serving because it's creating a lot of possibilities. But something that I really love is that AI can be so incredibly people first. And I'm maybe rewinding a little bit and going back in the conversation, Skip, when you asked me what kind of patterns we're seeing in these conversations that we're having.
Mhm.
And I shared, we do see a lot of fear and a lot of skepticism. And one of the things that I get really excited about is that in the face of that fear and skepticism, it is forgotten and not talked about enough how much AI can create and how people first it can really be. And people first is so core to who we are at In Time Tech and our mission to create abundance and to make a difference through technology. It's just, there's so many possibilities. So I see AI creating jobs. I see AI allowing people to get out of these mundane things that, frankly, I haven't heard anyone fight to hold on to. I have not met a single person in the hundreds of people that I've talked to about AI projects say, man, please don't take away that 4 hours I'm spending updating an Excel sheet. Please don't do that. It's going to set my career back. I haven't heard it in actuality. So, how forwarding it can be, it means that when you go home, you can go home because you're not preparing for your meetings the next day manually. You're not collecting data from existing sources. You're not really spending time updating these Excel spreadsheets all the time. You get to do people focused things. You get to grow skill sets. You get to spend more time innovating. You get to spend more time with your customers. You likely get to spend more time with your family because productivity can just go through the roof and you're going to get your things done in a shorter amount of time. So I just look at what's coming and everything can be misused, everything can be abused. But when you look at the goodness of it and what it can create and the possibilities it can leave companies and people with, I just see that being endless.
That's wonderful. If we think about like what you're reading or listening to kind of stay abreast of all of the different latest trends, the changes that are going on, anything in particular that jumps out for you that you've either read or listened to recently that you might like to kind of flag for our listeners?
Yeah. So when it comes to something new, I would say a lot of what I shared today is coming from firsthand conversations and firsthand experiences with real companies and real leaders who are making decisions and creating a future for their teams and their organizations. But when it comes to things that consistently and predictably leave me inspired about business and really just how to show up in life, I'm going to go back to some classics and things that our team personally both talks about often, goes back and rereads often. there are some books that are just tried and true. So for me, one of my go-tos is going to be Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey. We love that book. We get so much out of it as far as how we approach partnership and how to just build real, authentic, genuine relationship. We also, for me, I love Radical Candor by Kim Scott. It's an art form to be able to have genuine, straightforward conversations and to agree to disagree and to do that in a very forwarding way. It just leaves others with so much more than not sharing and not being straightforward. And then I will say, my president and CEO, Jeet Kumar, he does have 2 books that he's written. And those are really impactful for a multitude of reasons. One, I've gotten to see and live a part of that journey as a part of his leadership team, but they're just really practical, real life treasures of how to manage things and lead things with a tremendous amount of love and care. So that is Create an Impact. And again, Jeet Kumar, he's the author of that book. And that's something that circulates often within our team when we have new hires. And some of our partners have even adopted that book and made reading groups out of that book to really just instill some of these really tried and true basic human principles on how to operate and show up fully self-expressed, peaceful, joyful, and open moment to moment. So not new and trending, not necessarily AI related, but just when it comes to material that challenges you and opens you up, just gold and classic.
Excellent. Love it. I've read many of those books, and I agree. They're gems. Well, I wanted to thank you for taking some time out of your schedule to spend some time with us, share some insight, share how you're navigating everything that's going on right now. Really appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, you all have been a tremendous resource to us and our network over the years, and look forward to more of the same going forward. I wanted to see if you had any sort of parting remarks for folks as we wrap up.
Parting remarks. Let me think about that. Whether it's personal or professional, really what I'd want to leave.
Either one.
Okay, just pick one. I would say something that's been on repeat in my mind. Maybe it's a departure from the actual conversation, Skip, but here's what's on my mind.
No, that's
Here's what
great.
it is authentically.
Yeah.
Recently read something that was proposing this idea that you cannot be needy and nasty. You have to choose one. It's end of life. And I'll just hum a few bars on that. If you really need something from someone, or you need something from a company, or you need something, then be needy, but don't be nasty. Then be humble and be grateful and be curious and be open. And if you want to be nasty and to do things your way, then don't be needy. But you can't be both. It's just against humanity. So that is something I found incredibly profound and has been living rent-free in my mind for a couple of weeks now. So as you ask me any parting words, I just say maybe take a minute and look at your life and look at how you're showing up as an employee, as an employer, as a family member, as a friend in your community, wherever it is, and really ask yourself, am I being needy and nasty? Am I demanding and requiring something from you and I want to act and behave and say anything I want to say at any point in time? Or am I needy and humble and generous? Or am I independent and I can produce results and I don't need anything? And then do your thing, right? Do your thing.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. There's one that I use with my kids a lot, which is it helpful or is it kind? Think about that before you say something or offer a remark. And I find myself doing it too. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not going to say anything.
Right. It's a great framework for the kids. And there's some parallels to that, right? Of don't be needy and nasty. Choose one and go with it.
I love it. Words of wisdom.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us. Always appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Skip. It was a pleasure and a delight to spend this time with you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to Techlandia. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe, share it with your network, and leave us a review. It really helps grow the show. Techlandia is about connecting you to the people, ideas, and innovation shaping our region's tech community. If you want to support the podcast and its mission, check out the links in the show notes. Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and keep building what's next.